Hey, it's time for another edition of the Cseekly Recap. I'm your host, Csomm, and I'm here to go a bit deeper into the topics that I've covered in my shorts. The footage behind is from the game The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Let's get this show on the road. First story that I have for today is all about Remedy. Remedy Entertainment's new CEO believes franchises like Alan Wake 2 and Control deserve much bigger sales. While some fans remain skeptical because of his previous background at EA, he says he understands how protective players are of Remedy's unique creative identity. The studio now wants to expand its audience through bigger franchise strategies, including cross-media projects. I remember back in the day, the first time I heard about Alan Wake stuff. And even though I'm not a huge horror fan, as a matter of fact I don't play horror games at all, I was kinda captivated by the story that Alan Wake was all about. You know, him being this author and he can kinda write stuff into reality and all that shit. And I kinda stuck with the whole franchise, especially when Control came out, because it was a part of a shared universe. So naturally what I did, I replayed all Alan Wake games, then I played Control, but then Alan Wake 2 came out, so yet again I replayed everything that was connected to Alan Wake 2. And let me tell you, I really had a blast, especially with Alan Wake 2. However, that's just my opinion because a lot of people aren't even aware of Alan Wake stuff up until Alan Wake 2 was released. Now, we can talk about why these things haven't sold more, but in my opinion, I think it's all about marketing. Because in this day and age, marketing is the one that sells the games. At least initially, when people don't know about the franchises. And then later on, it kinda, snowballs itself because now you know the franchise and you want to experience more of it. Also, like I said in my short, Epic Game Store exclusivity didn't really help a lot. Because if I remember correctly, a lot of people didn't even want to touch the game unless it was available on Steam. I was kinda lucky in that situation because I received Alan Wake 2 key from my pal because he bought this giga expensive graphics card and he wasn't a fan of Alan Wake 2, so he was like, you wanna try it, I'll give you the key. And that's basically how I ended up playing Alan Wake 2 in the first place, because if he didn't give me the key, I don't really believe I would play the game at all. So there's your problem, at least from my point of view. Another thing that I would like to point out is how weird these games are. And for me, at least, they are a good type of weird because I kinda like the whole setting and everything that comes with them. But for other people, it's like, what the fuck is this? What the fuck is that? Who the fuck are you? I remember the first time I played Control, it was like a fever dream. You are inserted in this building, stuff is happening on a scale that's completely out of this world. You don't know what the hell is gonna happen in the future because you cannot really predict any chain of events because, again, it's so fucking convoluted. However, fortunately for me, I have this philosophy whereby I need to play the game from start to finish, or rather, I will always play the game from start to finish in order to properly review it. Unless you're talking about something really fucking strange, like the game not working properly or control scheme being fucked or something along those lines, but even then I will make a first impressions. But I digress. What I wanted to say is because of my philosophy, I managed to play the game from start to finish, and I kinda realized that this is one of those hidden gems that requires of you to invest more time because the pacing and the story requires of you to do so. And I would say not a lot of people these days have that mindset. They just want fast-paced action. Everything kinda served in front of you on a silver plate. Having really easily understandable storyline. And ultimately, game not being so convoluted and complex in a sense that you actually need to think about things, remember things, contemplate things. And that's basically what Alan Wake is all about. You start slow, you don't really have a lot of info about what the hell is happening. You are essentially given this complex puzzle that you need to find pieces in order to complete it, but it's not that simple. And not to mention certain things aren't straightforward to begin with. But because I had prior knowledge about the franchise, about the characters, about the whole plot situation, and let me tell you, I really thoroughly enjoyed Alan Wake 2. Starting from the whole story and how it develops, with musical aspect of it, with soundtrack, everything kinda clicked with me. And I would definitely 100% recommend people playing Alan Wake 2, but more importantly, I would definitely recommend playing older games, starting from Alan Wake up until Control, and then you finish with Alan Wake 2, in order to have a deeper understanding about the whole plot. And I would say that you do need to play older games in order to understand everything, even though some people are saying that's not necessary. But I would sort of disagree because I feel if you want to understand things in a better way, then it's basically mandatory to do that. And that might be the problem with these games because you don't have the backstory required in order to understand everything that's going on. Now that I think about it, I don't even know whether or not Alan Wake 2 has some kind of a recap about the things that were happening in the past. And because the overall story is so layered, you actually need this recap thing to be included in the game. So pretty much to summarize, Alan Wake is an amazing universe and people who created are really fucking creative. But it needs better marketing, it needs better recap in order to understand what's going on, and it needs to have accessibility for every single platform, not just Epic Game Store. Yeah, they were saying that Epic was really kind to them and supported them all the way, but Steam is where you want to be in order to reach out to more people. So we will see what's going to happen with the second control, and I have seen they are kinda pushing marketing a bit harder, and as far as where the game is going to be available, it looks like they have learned their lesson as well, because if you go on Steam, you can see that you can pre-order the game. So maybe now that they have fixed these three elements that I was talking about, maybe the games will get the recognition they deserve. And hopefully Remedy will still be around, alive and kicking, in order to produce even more fantastic games. I wish them all the best. The next recap section is all about Witcher 3. CD Projekt has officially announced a brand new expansion for The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt called Songs of the Past. The expansion is being co-developed with Fool's Theory and will bring players back alongside Geralt of Rivia once again in 2027. Considering how legendary expansions like Blood and Wine and Hearts of Stone were, expectations are already sky high. I don't generally get excited about things to a point where I cannot stop thinking about them, but this is one of them. I was already familiar with all the leaks that were happening, that the expansion is going to happen, and that got me so excited, especially when one of the leaks mentioned that we might get expansion in 2026. So now that you see the official announcement, them saying that it's going to happen in 2027, well, that's the only thing that's bad about this whole situation. But don't get me wrong, if they're going to delay it a bit, all the better if that means that it's going to be polished to perfection. We don't know a lot about what's going to happen in Songs of the Past. There are some theories about that whole situation, especially what I have been listening and reading online, particularly connected with the shape of the sword that Geralt has in the main announcement screenshot. But don't worry, we are going to get official explanation, I think during summer this year, where they will flesh out everything what expansion is going to have, or rather, I would say the main story or synopsis of the expansion. Whatever may be the case, all I know is that I cannot have enough of Witcher 3, and case in point, this is my 9th playthrough right now because I decided to make a nice proper save, which then I will use in order to play the next expansion. So yeah, I am very much excited, minus the reality of situation, which is that the game is gonna come in 2027. Also, if you didn't know, they kinda pimped up the system requirements, but it's not that bad. The game is very much still available to any of the people who have older hardware. And you can probably comfortably play it on a PC that's, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years old. So yeah, that's also additional bonus to the whole situation. My plans for this particular game are very simple. I'm going to stream it, I'm going to play it, I'm going to review it. And I think 100% I'm probably going to enjoy it. I expect really, really good story, really good characters, plot, all that stuff. But when it comes to gameplay elements, I don't think that they're going to change a lot. The best thing that I can predict is maybe they're going to check out what mods are people using on Nexus and kinda implement it because they have been doing these things in the past. So, extra quality of life features are always welcomed. And I'm looking forward to dive again in the Witcher universe. And speaking about diving, Subnautica 2 has reportedly sold so well that Krafton has agreed to pay the massive $250 million earnout bonus at the center of its legal battle with Unknown Worlds Entertainment leadership. The situation became infamous after core documents revealed allegations that Krafton attempted to delay the game and explored ways to avoid a payout, including reportedly consulting ChatGPT during the process. Now, after millions of sales and a record-breaking launch, it looks like the developers may finally receive the payout they fought for. You know what's funny about this whole Subnautica 2 situation? At least that's my theory, but hear me out. The game launched in a really good state, possibly because Krafton delayed it. Because if the game initially launched when they wanted it to launch, which is like a year ago, I don't think that we would have this level of polish that we have right now, meaning that the game wouldn't sell this good. Or at least that's one of my theories anyway. So inadvertently, Krafton kinda shot themselves in the foot by delaying everything, using ChatGPT as a legal advisor, and then finally when the game launched in early access and obviously was backed by players all over the world because everybody was butthurt what Krafton was doing, we now have a situation where Krafton, trying to avoid paying the massive bonus, actually needs to pay the bonus because of everything they have been doing. I mean, when you look at this from that particular point of view, you cannot make this shit up, even if you wanted. These guys, Krafton that is, tried to do everything not to pay, but by doing what they were doing, they actually forced themselves to pay up. I don't think I've ever seen a situation where you're trying to sabotage someone else, but then, when everything kinda unrolls, you pretty much sabotage yourself and pay a huge fucking price. So I guess the whole saga is now done. The bonus is going to be acquired by the developers. The development is still going on. We have Subnautica 2 is going to happen in 2 or 3 years when they finally release 1.0 version of the game. And who knows, maybe someone else will buy the Unknown Worlds Entertainment because staying at Krafton when everything happened in such ugly way, I don't think I would do that if you ask me, but who knows. All I know is this is one of the most hilarious things that I've ever seen or heard. And maybe, just maybe, this is going to be a lesson for everyone not to be a dumb fuck like Krafton people are. And that's basically it when it comes to the news that I covered this week. And as always, I encourage you to leave comments. I read all of them and I'm very happy to interact there with you guys. And if you enjoy this content, consider liking it and subscribing for more discussions like this. That's it from me. Until the next one.